See how we're all running out every day and we're working for others. If we came together and worked for self, I think you said you'd feel so much better than you would working for anybody else.
But this is what Garvey said. This is what Garvey said. Garvey, that's why he tried to get jobs for our people. That's what the nation did, following Garvey. We're trying to get jobs for our people so we can employ ourselves. The essence of a family, a man, he should be having his own business and employing his own kids, basically. And that's, you don't have to look for the jobs. I've got you. And that's what we keep on passing on to Jen. But we need to have it in an organised way. And sorry, just the last point. That's why Garvey was a so successful nation. I'd say to a lesser sense in the organisational sense as a one body. But that's why they were so successful, because they had a vision. The African village. Remember, it's a copy of an African village, you know. We have a vision. We have, this Chukwu is our divinity. Nyam, Uncle, and the concepts we're creating, not around the divinity, but around nature. This is our role. And that's what Garvey did. He created an idea. It's not just physical but psychological for African people. Do you understand? Because the first concept is love who you are. Black pride.
And would you say, Ras, that your generation are adopting some of these things, so they're starting to make businesses?
Bro, Rasta's foundation is Garveyism. It's about, of course, brethren, black pride. Listen, this is why Garvey said we must be proud to be black. Rasta say knowledge of self, the nation say psychological changes. We have to make us African people.
But he meant it.
But we all, well, I think they all meant it, basically. You don't think the nation meant it?
Oh, no.
As in nowadays, they
that's why it worked. Exactly, family. It worked because we saw, even when he went to court and he was done for the fraud, they said, even his enemies were going, you know, no matter what you say about him, he's an honest person.
He couldn't have done what he done if he didn't
he had integrity.
It wasn't in him. But now, sorry,
no, it's okay, carry on.
Now, right, enough man are talking this thing. They don't actually feel it. Because knowing that is also like knowing like what's actually going on outside. The mental, the physical, the spiritual all matters. Because they're all being attacked. So when you take that into account, it's like, okay, shit, we've got no choice. We've actually got no choice but to stand up and stand strong and move in order. But we don't actually know what's going on. We're just talking this thing. Because really, this thing, when you see it for what it is, it's painful, but it's beautiful at the same time. But that's taken into account what it actually is. The balance, me personally, I don't think there's enough of us that see it for what it is. Because we're still fucking around out there.
Hold on. You see what you're saying? Remember what you were saying about solutions? When you was talking about culture, you struck a chord with me. It's very, because it's exactly what I was thinking about. You was talking about the brother in the shop saying the N-word. I remember that this one sister told me one time, she was in a local park with a couple of people, and this white boy was doing the same thing. And she turned to him and said, "You really like saying that word, don't you?" And just looked at him. And the response that she said, she never got a response like that, and it was really, and I can only imagine what that moment would have been like. So I just think sometimes, like, I try not to be offended by anything that white people say anymore. I try not to let it give power, and I try not to be shocked. And maybe that puts me in a very cynical place.
No, you're just above it, bro.
I'm just not shocked or offended in it, because I understand it's all about action and you're trying to get me off my post. When it comes to the cultural aspect, culture for me is very much informed by the subconscious symbolism.
Yeah.
So symbolism will help people to understand the situation and all get into formation without even really acknowledging that they're part of a group or whatever. They're all acting subconsciously.
Because you're using the language of the mind now.
Exactly. Thank you. So this is why Dr. Frances Cress Wilson, I'm sure I've mentioned it before, talks about bullfighting. And she says, it's Spanish people teaching each other, this is how you deal with these black people, yeah? They're big and powerful. If you weaken the bull first, you put on a suit of armour, and then you distract it, and then once, see, so now, and then boom, so they've taught that, this is a cultural thing. There's another sport they got, and what do they do?
They're chasing the bull.
They kill the bull.
Exactly.
Exactly.
The bull chases them, that's right.
Exactly, like another one where the bull chases them. They've got this, and they always use black bulls.
You know what's so funny? I'm watching a lot of bullfighting. I just type in YouTube and I just watch bullfighting. Recently, I just watch it all the time.
But now,
because it's talking to you, bro.
And now that's happening.
And watch it for no reason.
Go back and watch the audience. Go back and watch how this affects the audience, the thrills that they get, the information, the downloads that they're getting at the time. Yeah. So that's the first part, yeah. And now what are the downloads that we're getting? I've always go back to it. When I wanted to know who I was as a young black boy, the first place I thought I had to get rich or die trying, and I'm not joking. I really thought I had to be like 50. I had no clue where to go. I had no one to ask. So the symbols and the downloads that I got from what I was seeing informed my culture.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, we was all interacting in that culture, and it created the world that we're living in today, because we were the foundation for some of the problems that you're seeing.
That's not our culture, is it?
And it's not. It's the but it's a reaction to these symbols that we're all undertaking.
Absolutely.
But obviously, on the other side of things, when you're talking about this spiritual war, and I think what you were saying as well, sis, is really taking control of the conscious mind. Because the subconscious is acting through these symbols.
Yes.
The conscious mind knows this now, we must create some more symbols.
Absolutely.
That's why you're so
Absolutely.
intent of us sitting down, putting this camera on and not filtering. Because these symbols need to be created. So in some sort of way, someone out there is changing their culture in a small way that's going to affect their family in a beautiful way. And the war's being won on a small step. On that note, I want to shout out my young brother that watches all the videos, yeah? He goes uni and does geography. I'm going to make up your name, but I appreciate you, bro, yeah? And it's about you. It's about you and all of the other people watching.
So,
while we
You know
do
what
it.
it is? Can I quickly just say one quick thing that some of us don't even know how bad the war is as well, because some of us think that because you're personally affected, oh, we must be at war. There's things going on in your community, oh, you must be at war. You're seeing the brothers being stopped and searched disproportionately, and we're in prison at higher rates. But people aren't talking enough about how much of us are in mental homes. Only recently, only very recently, a lot of the man them have been working in there and coming out and telling me, like, yo, bro, you know, it's just all young black people in there. And I'm like, no way, because I didn't know. It's like, bro, if I go and visit in a few different, they're full up with black people. Basically, the war, we're losing the war at a massive at rates we can't even imagine, because our minds are not getting through just our normal day to day.
You know what it is, bro?
We're talking about the
it's also
symbols, the culture. We don't listen, man. One of the greatest weapons. I really believe this. One of the greatest things that they've done to us is teach us to not eat off of one plate anymore. From the east to the west, African people eat off one plate together, and they share, and just culturally, you have to listen. The type of love you have to have
consideration,
for the people, the consideration, not being hungry belly and
I
understand.
understand.
I'm not even doing this. And it's just these small things that have been informed by culture. We've watched Hollywood maybe and thought, oh, we need this knife and fork and da da da. And it manifests itself in so many different ways. We need to continue this and propaganda war to continue to have ideas permeating which are very much logical when they're strapped into when they're plugged into the past and they're plugged into the future. But we're in the middle holding it.
Absolutely.
If we can look at the Sankofa, if we look at what's happened, what can we take from there that's going to inform us about how we're going to deal with the future. And one thing we can learn from the past, and I think it's what you keep saying, is we've given them an opening. We've given many of our enemies with bad intentions many different openings to come in and take advantage and to put their poles up, their flags, and their flags all have eyes.